Please turn to page 193 for informative explanatory writing at stage 11. This video will focus on contrasting two or more things for a contrast paragraph or essay. On this page, you will see that we have our cause and effect organizer, our compare or contrast organizer. Compare and contrast are separate thinking activities. You could eventually have them on the same essay, but the whole point is to do one or the other. The whole purpose of analyzing two or more things is to compare them or contrast them for a reason. So when you are comparing or contrasting, you are separating them out. Again, you could eventually have an essay where you have separate main ideas doing both, but the whole point is that it is a thinking activity where you're either contrasting or comparing for a purpose. Today, we will learn the steps to contrast information. We will continue with the same organizers where you have an introduction, body, and a conclusion. This format can work to write just a paragraph, or it could become a multiple paragraph essay. Let's turn to the next page so that we can get started specifically on contrast writing at stage 11. Please turn to page 195. On page 195, I have listed different stems that you can use to create questions for any of these three types of writing that analyze information. I have two different stems that you can use to form contrast questions. Now, why are we starting with a question? This is an analysis activity. The students already know the information, and at this point, you are taking information that they have learned and they are analyzing it by either contrasting two or more things, or comparing two or more things, or showing change, cause and effect. And the whole reason why we are going through that contrasting, comparing, or cause and effect is to analyze the information for a purpose. So, comparing, contrasting, cause, and effect are the thinking activities. They are the task. What is it that you are going to do with this information? And in order to perform that task, you are doing that task for a purpose. So that's how these questions are set up. They're set up so that students have this question so that they actually take the material and reach that high level of thinking. The question stems have two parts. They have a task. That's what you're telling the students to do. And then they should have a purpose. Why are we doing this thinking task? You're not just asking kids to show the differences between something. You need to have a purpose for that. So there's two reasons why you contrast, and that's why we have two STEM questions. So notice the first part here is the task. And that's where we're showing contrast, and then there's your two, and then if you have more than two, then you would have three different things that you would show differences for. Contrast, and let's use dogs and cats to make an example so it's easy to understand. Contrast dogs and cats. Then you have your purpose. And your purpose here is to show which is best. And when we talk about which is best, we are saying which is best for, and then for what reason are they best? Oh, for a pet. So you have to include that. You're not just saying, oh, they're best for all the reasons in the world. You're talking about a specific reason why they're best for some sort of a purpose. Contrast dogs and cats. There's my task. My thinking task is I'm contrasting. My reason why is to determine which is the best pet. So there's how we put together our questions, and we are giving those to the students so we can guide them to these high levels of thinking. We can't just expect students to figure out how to get to this high level of thinking. We need to guide them, and this questioning will get them there with specifically identifying the task and the reason why. That's the type of thinking you want kids to have. Next, let's go to the second type of contrast question. Let's take two different subjects now. How about candy and fruit? How is candy different from fruit? Explain how their differences cause a change or different outcomes. So when I look at candy and fruit, I can look then at how the differences between candy and fruit can help you change what you choose to eat in your diet, or can give you different outcomes, provide you with a healthy diet or an unhealthy diet. So we have our question stems here, which provide a task and a purpose. Once you have your question stem, then the students would decide which organizer are they going to use, and what is the organizer that we're going to use today is the contrast. What does the organizer do? It provides a roadmap for thinking. We can't just hope that our kids can get to that analysis level. We need to show them specifically what they need to do in order to reach that analysis level, that higher level of thinking. So we have our question and we have our organizer. Let's walk through the pages that are dedicated to contrasting information. On page 200, we have our checklist, always organized in the same way, the way that you want to analyze a student's writing. This checklist has content and organization, what elements need to be in the contrast essay or paragraph, what elements do we need to have in our sentences, and also our mechanics for our checklist. We are using this checklist to analyze our students' writing. When they have their final finished published piece of writing, you can use this in order to make sure they have all their elements in place for contrast writing at stage 11. Below that, we have our hand signal for the contrast essay as well as the organizer displayed. The organizer is set up with an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The same type of setup, introduction, body, conclusion, that we have had since stage 7 of writing. So we're just continuing with what we've always been learning, the same organizer, and the body is where we are going to have the type of thinking that will make this a contrast organizer. Our hand sign is going to teach us how to fill in the body of the essay. So we have our organizer and our hand signs. Let's learn the hand sign. When we get to the body of contrasting the information, the hand sign will help us figure out how to think and how to fill in our organizer. So when we contrast, what we do is we identify the attributes, contrast, then tell the effect. So look at that. When we were comparing, we had the same hand sign except we were comparing. At this point, we are taking that same hand sign, but we are going to say contrast. So let's do it again. Identify the attributes, contrast, then tell the effect. And from there, we have our organizer where we would have our introduction, and in the body, we have our attributes, contrast, and then tell the effect. And we would do that for however many attributes we've identified in order to analyze the big idea. On the next page, what you will see is the question that was given to the students in order to drive this thinking activity. Notice the question has the task. How are fruits different from vegetables? So the thinking task right away is identified. Students know I'm contrasting. Next, they need to have the purpose. Who cares why they're different? We don't care unless we have a reason for doing it. That's the whole point for analyzing information. And our purpose is to explain how their differences are important to your diet. So at that point, we have a purpose and we're ready to start our paper. And this is a sample of a completed contrast organizer with our introduction, body, and conclusion. Notice there were 3 attributes chosen here in order to analyze the differences between fruits and vegetables to show how they're important in our diet. So this is our organizer completed, and below is a sample piece of writing that was generated from this organizer. Let's go to the next page so that we can look at a student chart that you can use to introduce the contrast writing, as well as your teacher at a glance direction sheet. When introducing contrast writing to your students, you can display the chart and tell the students, boys and girls, we are going to contrast 2 or more things. And then, of course, we can have the students say, who cares? Why are we doing that? In our science unit, learning information about plants, now we're going to take that information to a higher level, and we're going to take 2 or more things from what we've learned and contrast them. Who cares? Why do we need to do that? Well, we're going to contrast them to either determine which one is best. So maybe I'm at the store and I'm looking at 2 different types of vegetables that I want to purchase. Which vegetable is best for me to choose for my purpose, for my salad? So I'm looking at 2 vegetables. Which one do I want for my salad? One may be better than the other. Or to explain different outcomes. I may take candy and I may take carrots and say, what are their differences? Their differences will explain when I eat them, I'll have different outcomes, how my body will feel after I eat either candy or after I eat carrots. So when I'm contrasting information, what's my reason? To see which one's best or to show different outcomes. This will cause this to happen or this will cause this to happen. Here's our organizer. Excellent. It has the same setup: introduction, body, and conclusion. We know how this works. We know the introduction has a hook and it has an SS light bulb. Here's what we're going to be learning: how to contrast 2 or more things. And then at the bottom, we're going to have our conclusion and our snappy ending. What's our focus today? It's the body, how to contrast 2 or more things. So in order to do that, let's go down to our hand signal. Our hand signal is going to teach us how to contrast. Ready? Identify the attributes, contrast, show the effect. So that's what we're going to do when we're in the body. We need to identify the attributes, contrast, show the effect. Let's go to the next page. We have our direction sheet that you can follow in order to teach the lesson. You can also give this to your students because they're much more developed writers. They could use this eventually to follow along when they're independently writing their own contrast papers. What's our first step? We're going to have the introduction and we're going to have our SS light bulb, where we are going to identify the task as well as the purpose in our light bulb. Once we have our thesis statement, that big idea statement about what we're contrasting and the purpose, then we'll head to the body, that analysis, that deep thinking, by identifying the attributes, contrasting them, and showing the effect. At the bottom of our organizer, we will form our conclusion, where we will repeat that big idea, but also announce the results of that contrast. And then go back and form a hook and a snappy ending. To pull our reader in, grab their attention, and then at the end of our paper, to end with that snappy ending. Why was this information important? Do I have a new perspective? Do I have a new idea? Can I leave you with an emotion? There's the steps to contrast information. Please grab a blank sheet of paper, and we will walk through the steps for a contrast piece of writing. Here's the question that we used in order to write this paper. And that is, how are fruits different from vegetables? So there's our task. Fruits and vegetables, we're going to look at their differences. And then here's the purpose for this paper. Explain how their differences are important to your diet. So we're going to look at fruits and vegetables, we're going to look at their differences, and from their differences, that's going to determine how much of them we are going to eat in our diet, which one we are going to select when we eat, how often are we going to choose one over the other. Okay, so we know we eat both, but are we going to eat more of one than the other? Which ones are we going to choose? How do we use them in our diet? Let's walk through the steps to answer that question at that deep analysis level. We're ready to start our contrast paper. We know we need to draw our organizer, and what does our organizer need to have? An introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So we draw 2 lines. 1, 2. Up at the top will be our area for our introduction, where we can hook in our reader, grab their attention, then tell our thesis statement. That's going to be our task and purpose. Who or what are we contrasting, and for what reason? Then we're going to go to the body. And in the body, what is that? That's information, information, information to tell about that big idea. And how are we going to fill in the body? What's our thinking? We're going to identify the attributes, contrast, then tell the effect. All right, that's what's going to happen in the body. Let's go to the bottom. What do we have? The conclusion. Repeat the big idea, but use different words and end it with a snap. So in the bottom, we're going to repeat that big idea, and we're going to end it with a snap. What were the results? Why was this so important? Let's start with our first step, and that is SS light bulb, the thesis statement. What's the big idea of this entire paper? To form our thesis statement, what do we need? We need our SS light bulb. Setting, subject, big idea. Setting, do I have a time or place? Subject, who or what is the information about? So who or what are the two or more things that I'm going to contrast? That's what I'm going to put in the subject. Big idea, that's going to be the task and the purpose. So my big idea is, what is this information about? This is about their differences, the differences between fruits and vegetables, and what's my purpose is going to determine how I select them in my diet. That's my purpose. So I have my subject, task, purpose. Let's add that information on our organizer. Now on the top of this organizer, I presented under the subject 3 different ways that you could record this information. You would choose one of them. When you're recording your information, it could be simple icons, keywords, or you could just have some sort of a symbol or letters if you can remember what the information is, and we have V and F here. It doesn't matter. So if you were doing this together with your students, if they were learning how to contrast, they weren't independently writing this yet, you want to show them, boys and girls, you can draw a picture, use keywords, or shorten those words down, whatever makes sense to you. You're using this for thinking. If you won't remember the V and F for vegetables and fruit, then don't use it. You need to think of what are you going to use so that you remember the information and also you can record it quickly. Children in the room can have different ways they record the information. It's really what suits them best. The first thing we need to do when we're coming up with our big idea is look at the subject. The next thing is the light bulb. What's our task? We're going to show the differences between these. That's our task. Why? To explain when or why they should be eaten. So we have keywords here in which we recorded so that we had our purpose. After that, we went to our setting and asked, do we have a setting, a time or place for this? We could say every day, many times a day, all year long, or we decided, no, we don't need to add that. So we put an X there. Setting is always optional. Once you have your big idea, you can orally rehearse it. Fruits and vegetables are important for any healthy diet, but their differences explain when and why they are eaten. We just recorded our big idea, our thesis statement, and at this point, where are we heading? The body. Information that is going to analyze the fruits and vegetables to show when and why we would eat them. Let's go to our hand signals. What's the first thing we need to do? Identify the attributes. So I'm looking at fruits and vegetables, and I'm looking at their differences to show when I would eat them and why I would eat them. What attributes am I looking at when it comes to choosing them for my diet? To have a healthy diet, I have to look at how many calories are in these different types of fruit. What do they taste like? And what kind of health benefits do they have? What's the differences between the fruits and vegetables when it comes to how they benefit my body? Where did we get that information? You can't analyze unless you know the information. So we're looking at what we know about fruits and vegetables, what we've been learning, and we're looking at our question. So how do we do that? We have to identify attributes that focus on that question. So we're identifying the attributes. Let's put a finger down for each attribute. So we talked about taste and texture. That's going to affect when and why I eat them. Something better tastes good and it better have a good texture if I want to eat it. What's the next thing? Calories, sugar. How many calories? How much sugar's in the food? And what's the final thing? What kind of vitamins and minerals? How does this affect the health of my body? We identified texture and taste to look at the differences between the two in order to explain when and why we would eat them. We're going to look at sugar and calories to see their differences to explain when and why we would eat them. We're going to look at the health benefits of the two to explain when and why we would eat them. Once we identified those attributes, what are we ready to do next? Contrast. Let's make our T-chart and we will contrast the differences between vegetables and fruit for texture, taste, sugar, calories, and health benefits. First, we'll make T-graphs underneath the attributes so that we can record the information for each one. And let's look at our fruits and vegetables when it comes to texture and taste. When we looked at fruit, we talked about how fruit has many times seeds in it. It's soft, sweet, juicy, and tart. Or vegetables, hard, crunchy. You can cook them, you can eat them raw. We record down the fruits and vegetables, and next we need to show what's the effect of the texture and taste of the fruit. when it comes to when and why I eat them. What's the effect of vegetables, the taste and the texture, that explains when and why I eat them? After we show the effect, we'll go through and we'll do the same for sugar and calories. We're looking at our fruit. It's soft, sweet, juicy, tart. How does that affect when and why we choose them? When I'm choosing one or the other, the reason when or why I'm choosing one is one may be just for a snack or a dessert, while the other one could be a snack or a side dish in a meal. Let's go to what we had for sugar and calories. When we looked at fruit, fruit has more sugar. For example, when you take a cup of oranges, it equals 17 grams of sugar. But vegetables have less sugar. For example, broccoli, 1 cup of broccoli is only 2 grams of sugar. Wow, look at the differences in that. That's going to help me determine when and why I choose one over the other. So let's look at the effects down below. Because of the high amounts of sugar in fruit, they're better for a snack, a dessert, or toppings on food, so that you're not eating so much of them. But when we look at vegetables, you can eat more of them. They're going to satisfy your hunger, and there's less sugar. You can have vegetables for snacks and for meals. Fruit, you have to be a little bit more choosy about. Vegetables, you can eat a larger amount of, and they satisfy your hunger because you can eat so much of them because of the less sugar and calories, as well as it can be used for many different parts of your diet, while the fruit is a little bit more limited. Okay, let's go to health benefits. Let's see the differences between fruit and vegetables when it comes to health benefits and the effects in when and why we would eat them. When we looked at the fruit, we had learned that fruit is packed with vitamins, antioxidants, and they had essential nutrients. They help blood pressure, reduce cholesterol, they benefit the heart. So what's the effect of that? The health benefits are good. This is a very good food for you to eat. Okay, well, let's look at the vegetables then. The vegetables are also packed with vitamins, antioxidants. They're low fat and low calories, and they are going to help for all over the entire body. They have more health benefits. It's not that fruit is bad. Those benefits are good. That's the effect. But when it comes to vegetables, they're not just packed with all these vitamins and antioxidants. The big difference is that they have less sugar, less calories, and they provide even more different vitamins and different antioxidants and minerals for the body, and they have more benefits than the fruit. In our body, we had our attributes. Notice we had texture, taste, sugar, calories, health benefits listed. Then we contrasted each using a T-graph. Fruits and vegetables showing differences. Fruits and vegetables showing differences. Fruits and vegetables showing differences under each attribute. From there, what did we do? Show the effect. Then we showed the effect of each. And what is the effect? How this effect is going to determine when and why we eat each one. There's our thinking. There's our information recorded with keywords, simple drawings, organized the way that you're supposed to think at that high level of contrasting for analyzing the information. And it's also organized so that you can take all these key ideas and put them together for writing. Let's go to the conclusion on our organizer. We had our introduction, our body, we're at our conclusion. What's our conclusion supposed to do? It's supposed to repeat that big idea, but use different words and tell the results in that snappy ending. What's the result of this? And in this case, our result is to tell when and why we would eat the fruits and the vegetables. On the bottom of our organizer, we recorded S and our light bulb so that we could look at our subject. What is our subject about? Fruits and vegetables, how they're part of a healthy diet, but some of their differences mean that when you are choosing fruit, you should choose it as a treat, a snack, a dessert, a topping. But vegetables, on the other hand, should be the main staple of your choice between these two when it comes to your meals. The result. What's the result of this analysis? We have all our information recorded. We're ready to orally rehearse this information over and over and over again. Once we can orally rehearse it so that we are saying sentences that sound academic and are sophisticated, then we're ready to write them down. Please go to page 201. Here's our organizer where we have our intro, body, conclusion. And that means that on our paper, that should translate out the same exact way, where we have our introduction, down at the bottom should be our conclusion, and in the middle should be 1, 2, 3 main idea paragraphs, and there they are. 1, 2, 3 main idea paragraphs, starting with the main idea sentences, and then you have your detail sentences after each main idea in the body. In our introduction, we have our hook. After we hook in our reader with our hook sentences, then we go to our SS light bulb where we're showing fruits and vegetables and how they have differences, which are important in a balanced diet, and for which ones you're going to choose. Jump to the conclusion. We always start our conclusion sentence by repeating the big idea and then ending with that snap. We have our brainstorm filled in, orally rehearsed it, wrote it out, and then after we've written it, we circle and label the parts to make sure that we have all the elements in place. These are the steps for Stage 11, Informative Explanatory Writing, where you are contrasting 2 or more things. In our next video, we will continue with Stage 11, but we will focus on cause and effect, where we will identify the reasons why something changes.